Welcome to the Healthcare Hot Seat with Tina D. Badham and Lorie D. Owens, where the people who keep healthcare moving and the people who depend on it finally get a seat at the table. Take your seat. The conversation starts now. Welcome back to the Healthcare Hot Seat. I'm Tina Badham, registered nurse, caregiver advocate, and someone who has sat on both sides of the caregiving table. And if there's one thing that I've learned, it's this. Caring for someone doesn't automatically mean that you know what they want or what's best for them.
And I'm Lorie Owens, healthcare strategist and owner of Healthcare Office Solutions. Today, we're talking about something every caregiver eventually faces, but very few talk about openly. The moment that you realize what you want for your loved one, and it isn't always what they want for themselves.
It's emotional, it's complicated, and it's one of the biggest sources of conflict, guilt, and confusion in caregiving.
But here's the truth. Honoring someone's goals isn't just compassionate. In home health and hospice, it's a requirement from CMS. Agencies must capture patient-directed goals in the home health plan of care. In Section 42 CFR 484.60, an individual plan of care must reflect patient-specific needs and goals. It's there for hospice too. In 418.56, the plan of care must be individualized and driven by patient-family goals.
So today, Lorie and I are going to be breaking down how to understand what your loved one truly wants, how to respect it, even when it's hard, and how to make sure that those goals are documented and honored across the entire care team.
Let's start with the heart of the conversation, the emotional tug-of-war between what caregivers hope for and what our loved ones really want.
Because even with the best intentions, those two things don't always line up. And that's really unfortunate, but a very true statement. So I think to start off, Lorie, when you talk with caregivers, where do you see this mismatch show up the most often?
Caregivers often want safety, stability. They want more support, right? They want that care in the home. They want their loved ones to have independence and privacy or control. Caregivers often push for more services. Between caregiver burnout and the many other reasons, they're looking for that assistance. However, families are also looking for everything being done. They want comfort and not necessarily intervention. The caregivers want bubble wrap and patients want freedom.
It's true.
So what do you notice in your nursing experience when caregiver goals and patient goals don't align?
Patients, I think, often feel unheard when caregivers tend to speak for them. Caregivers generally feel guilty when they're honoring choices that they disagree with. And I think the clinicians just kind of get stuck in the middle with trying to really mediate between the two. The emotional weight, fear, love, frustration, grief. The truth is that both sides are really just trying to protect each other. So I think kind of moving in a little bit to why the patient goals matter, let's talk about why those patient-directed goals are so important, not just emotionally, but legally and clinically.
Because in home health and hospice, CMS requires agencies to document. That comes directly from the patient, not the caregiver, not the clinician. This needs to come directly from the patient.
So why do you think, Lorie, that CMS is so focused on patient-directed goals?
CMS requires individualized, patient-driven goals in home health and hospice, but it must reflect what the patient wants, not what others want. And honestly, when we're looking at patient outcomes, we find that if we focus on what's important to our patients, what drives them, what motivates them, what did they want for their care, we actually see a higher level of achievement. And that is what CMS is driving us in home care to do. And in hospitals. They don't want us back in the hospital. So, hospitals need to be focused on what do I need to provide?
Right.
The patient in their way that they understand and can comply with so that they don't end up back here. And for home health agencies, it's about how do I keep you home and discharge you from care eventually, and you stay home. And for caregivers, that's a whole different story. We'll get to that, but we're going to focus on the compliance piece right now. So let's get back to the heart of your question there, Tina. Agencies must document the goals and revisit them regularly. So goals must reflect what the patient wants, not what others want for them. And the agency must document those goals and revisit them regularly. We're at risk from a compliance perspective if we are not following up on that and measuring where the patient is against that. Really, the goal here is patient-directed care. So CMS doesn't want generic goal like feel better. They want the real stuff. I want to bake a cake. I want to walk to the mailbox. Like, what is it that they want to do? So how do you explain this to families who want to take over goal setting?
I think the best way to really frame it is by saying something along the lines of your loved one or your family member's voice has to lead the plan. Even if it's hard to hear sometimes, their voice has to be the main one above all the crowd that's making those goals. And, the goals must reflect the patient's values, their preferences, their priorities. And I think caregivers, they can support. It's definitely important to support your loved ones, but don't override. Clinicians can help translate goals into care plans. And when goals align with the patient's wishes, and as you mentioned before, we see improvements in outcomes. So that's really key and really important. So 100%. I think, it absolutely is. And I think as we go into kind of talking about misaligned goals, let's really bring this to life with some real world examples, because this happens every day in home health and hospice.
It really does. And it can be emotional and confusing and oftentimes heartbreaking, especially when our goals do not align.
Absolutely. So what do you think is an example for you, Lorie, of a time when caregiver goals and patient goals were completely different?
So, for example, a patient wants to stay home and the caregiver wants facility placement, whether it's from the amount of needs that the patient has being, too aggressive for what the caregiver feels that they can provide at home, or the patient literally just wants comfort care. They really don't want to pursue treatment. And that sometimes goes against what we feel as caregivers in the home. Sometimes it's the patient wanting fewer visits and the caregiver is wanting somebody there every day, and oftentimes really what our patients are looking for is independence. And so, trying to figure out how we navigate that without having the emotional fallout of guilt or fear or resentment. So it gets very complicated. So what stands out for you, Tina?
I think, patients often feel pressured to agree with their caregivers. And we've seen this throughout history. I've seen it personally. Caregivers feel that response. The caregivers themselves actually feel the responsibility, I guess, for the outcomes that they can't control. And, clinicians, I think, again, kind of get stuck in the middle. They have to advocate for the patient, but also have to be very supportive and be there for the family. And really, we see that the best outcomes happen when everybody just slows down and listens. Sometimes the patient wants peace and the caregiver wants a project plan.
Yes, this is true. But before we move forward, I want to pause and talk about something deeply personal, because it's not just theory for us. Both of us have lived and breathed these experiences in our day-to-day lives. And these conversations that we're having here today are come from lived experience. Absolutely. And Tina, you've walked through one of the hardest versions of this. When what you wanted for your mom wasn't what she wanted for herself. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. And forgive me ahead of time if I tear up a little. It's a very emotional thing, but this is definitely a deeply personal and emotional kind of thing. But it's something that I still carry with me to this day. And honestly, it's the perfect, shining example of how love and fear and caregiving can collide in ways that you just never expected.
Can you share what happened with your mom and how that shaped the way you see caregiver and decision making today?
Absolutely. And we definitely talked about this a little bit in the first podcast, but, my mom was facing a terminal breast cancer diagnosis. And the family, when we first heard those words, stage 4, terminal, as a 21-year-old kid myself, I think I didn't really know what to think. We were all terrified, absolutely terrified. And, she made it clear. She was quiet about it, but she was very clear that she did not want to take chemotherapy, having already been through this process 10 years earlier. She told us, she said, I don't want treatment. I don't want to have that. And I think in her mind, she felt like she wanted comfort and dignity and time, quality of time, and not more suffering, which is what she kind of felt like chemotherapy was going to put on the table for her. But, as a family, I think my sisters and I, we pushed. We were selfish. And I mean, that's human nature to be that, especially when you're talking about your family member and your loved one. But we wanted more time. We wanted to hear all of the options and more options and have the doctor give us more hope, even if it was false hope at that point. I think we were just pushing for anything that we could get from that. And we honestly had convinced ourselves, I think, from the get-go that we were really helping her. But really all that we were doing, and I think this is the important part to remember there, is really that was more about easing our own fears. I think she always felt pretty solidified in her choice not to do it. And because we were so fearful and because we pushed so hard, she eventually agreed to take chemo because it made us feel better. And as we watched the progression of that over the next year and a half, I mean, she got sicker, she got weaker. And I think really the chemo decision had kind of taken away that quality that I think she felt like she would have had otherwise. And for me, that's something that's very deeply personal because I truly carry that guilt to this very day for not listening to her sooner, for not choosing her path from the very beginning. And it may not have been different. She may have still got sicker and weaker. But I think the important thing to remember there is that would have been her choice and not mine. And so that experience, I think, changed me, as a nurse. I think I look at things differently as a nurse now, as a caregiver, a daughter. It really taught me that love and that genuine love that you feel for another person is very bad about clouding your judgment. And it can cloud that judgment and does. And I think it's more important now than ever to me that honoring somebody's wishes, that is what I have learned is the greatest piece of love that we can offer somebody. I learned the hard way that doing everything is not always going to be the right way or the right thing to do. And so, big life experience. But I Lorie, I think when you hear stories like mine, what stands out to you about how common that kind of thing is for families?
Oh, it's happened more times than I can count. And I've seen it with my friends, with my loved ones, and my personal relationships. I've seen it in, our clients, right?
Yeah.
Caregivers often push for treatments out of the fear or love or pressure to just do something. When a patient's wishes aren't followed, though, it stays with caregivers.
Yeah.
And oftentimes for years, just like you. Yeah. However, there's the flip side of that, Tina. That drove you to where you are today. It drove you to pursue the career that you did, to be involved with hospice care, to make a living difference for others, and to be a caregiver, to be a nurse and do what your mom always wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I get emotional when you tell the story because I feel it.
Yeah.
And, my own mom, having lost her at too young,
yeah.
and we've all lost.
Absolutely.
We've all lost somebody that we care about. Whether it was quick and unexpected, or if it was a long journey, we've all experienced loss and it sticks with us. And so what we're talking about today is just that when we have the opportunity to have the conversations with the people that we love, we may not always like what we hear.
Yeah.
And this happened to me recently, and it really dawned on me that what I wanted for my loved one was not what they wanted.
Right.
And I had a previous conversation with one of her other loved ones and telling them that, you've got to respect it. You got to respect it. But I wasn't the one hearing that directly in that moment. And, I could give the advice, I could say the words, but when it came my time to hear, it was different. And
absolutely.
It really does shape. I'm trying to get my words together. It really does shape the patient's care, right? It shapes, and it shapes the caregiver journey. And it's okay to feel the way you feel as a caregiver. You can be angry. Because it's normal. Like, why don't you want to get better? Why don't you want to pursue this? Why don't you want more time with me? And it may not be that it's not that they don't want more time. Like your mom, she wanted comfort. She wanted the quality of her life to be as close to what it had been.
Right.
And, she had experienced those things. It's exactly why patient-directed goals matter. They protect the patient and the caregiver.
My mom's story is exactly why I'm passionate about this topic. It's why I tell caregivers and people to not assume, don't decide for somebody else just because you're scared. Ask what they want, listen to what they want, and honor what they say. Even if truly in that moment, as it did for me, it is absolutely breaking your heart.
And it's why CMS requires patient-directed goals. Because the system finally recognized what families learn the hard way. The patient's voice has to lead the plan.
Absolutely. So, how do we actually figure out what they want? Not what we're assuming, not what we're hoping that they're going to say, but what they truly value.
It starts with asking the right questions and creating that space for honest answers.
What do you think is the first step that caregivers can take to understand what their loved one's goals are?
It really starts with open-ended questions, not just asking those yes, no, or those vague ones. Well, how do you feel today, Mom? Asking questions like, what matters most to you right now?
Right.
What are your fears? What are your priorities for where you are right now? And listen without trying to correct them or steer them, and validate their feelings. It might be as simple as just saying, I hear what you say.
Yeah.
And actually let them answer.
Yeah.
No multiple choice options, So when do you encourage caregivers to ask when they're unsure?
I think for caregivers or clinicians alike, I think some good things that they can probably start off with are asking things like, what does a good day look like for you? What is it that you're afraid of? What do you want to avoid? What gives you comfort, or what gives you that peace that everybody seeks? What do you want your care team to know about you? Because sometimes we come in and we don't always have all the answers. We need them to tell us, what do you want that care team to know and understand about you as a patient?
So now let's talk solutions, because, that's always what we're driving for.
Yeah.
But let's making sure it's honored is another.
Yeah, and this is where caregivers can make the biggest impact, a huge difference.
So what's the most important thing caregivers can do to make sure goals are captured correctly?
Tell the clinician this is what they want. Ask the nurse or the therapist or whoever's there to document the patient's exact words. Review the care plan, make sure that you're reviewing that care plan and confirming that those goals are accurate. You have the right to ask those questions. Speak up if that care plan is not matching what the patient is saying their wishes are. If the goal says run a marathon and your loved one hasn't run since 1984, maybe ask for a revision on that. Maybe there should be a better question, a different question we should ask.
Absolutely.
What else do you think helps us to ensure, Lorie, that these goals are respected across the care team?
So the biggest thing is to revisit the goals regularly because they change. Whether it's, between doctor's visits, between home health visits, hospice visits, and even as a caregiver, checking in because health situations change. They can improve, they can decline, a lot can happen. So making sure that you keep a check and know what those requests are. So, on the patient side of things, make sure you bring those goals to every appointment, that you have advance directives if you want them, asking providers to explain how their plan supports the goals, and document everything in writing. And if your patient doesn't feel comfortable saying it out loud in visits, or your mom, your dad, your sister, whoever, if they don't feel comfortable speaking up, ask them to write it down. What their wishes are. So it's, yeah.
So I think, when we're talking about what needs to change in caregiving culture, we can't talk about honoring patient goals without first talking about the culture of caregiving itself and how it needs to evolve.
Yes, because caregivers carry so much responsibility, and sometimes the pressure makes it hard to step back and listen.
That's so true. What shift do you, Lorie, think that caregivers need the absolute most?
To move themselves from that protection mode of thinking and move to really partnering with the person that they love. And
so beautifully said.
Yes. Yeah. Let go of what they think is perfect. Because, life is messy.
It is.
And accept that honoring somebody's wishes may feel really uncomfortable to us. Yeah. And that your loved one deserves autonomy and dignity. Yeah. And you're a caregiver, not a mind reader. So ask the questions.
Absolutely.
What shift do you think clinicians need to make?
Slow down and ask the right questions. It's not necessarily just about asking the questions in your check boxes on your plan of care or on your tablet or your device or whatever you're using. Ask the right questions. Advocate for the patient, even when it's hard. Support caregivers without taking sides, and reinforce that your patient's voice has to lead that plan. Build the care around the values and not the assumptions that we all tend to make.
Absolutely. And caregiving is love and action. But love doesn't mean deciding for someone. It means listening and honoring and supporting their choices, even if those choices stretch us.
Yeah. And I think too, remembering that your loved one's goals matter. Their voice matters. And in home health and hospice, their goals aren't just emotional, they are required. You have every right to ask for a care plan that reflects who they are and what they want.
Absolutely. So, guys, if today's conversation helps you feel more grounded or more prepared, follow our show, share it with someone who needs it, and join our growing community of caregivers who want clarity, compassion, and confidence.
And as always, you can find us on every major platform out there. And when you subscribe, you are never going to miss an episode or a conversation that could change the way that you navigate this system that we call healthcare.
So until next time, stay curious,
stay informed,
and stay in the hot seat.